We begin our journey at the very edge of human understanding, where the universe folds into itself and the familiar laws of nature seem to shatter. Imagine standing on the precipice of infinity, gazing into a void so dark and dense that light itself cannot escape. This is the realm of black holes, cosmic enigmas that challenge not only our science but the very limits of imagination. The scene is cinematic, swirling clouds of gas illuminated by distant starlight, warped space bending around an invisible gravitational sink, an abyss that hums with the quiet menace of forces beyond comprehension. The question emerges immediately: could anything exist here? Could life somehow find a way within this ultimate prison of gravity and time? Our minds instinctively recoil at the idea, yet fascination pulls us closer. Black holes are not merely destructive monsters lurking in the dark. They are thresholds to the unknown, cosmic laboratories where physics is pushed to extremes. As we drift closer in our imagination, we confront the event horizon, the invisible boundary that separates the known from the unknowable. Here, time stretches, light twists into impossible arcs, and reality itself becomes a slippery, mutable concept. Every second experienced near this boundary may stretch to centuries elsewhere, or collapse in an instant into an eternity we cannot comprehend. The cinematic imagery is overwhelming, a kaleidoscope of gravitational distortion, stars circling in fatal orbits, space-time itself rippling as though the universe were breathing around this singularity. Yet within this terrifying alien landscape, the seeds of possibility emerge. Could a civilization adapt to these extremes, to a world where every physical law we take for granted is warped beyond recognition? This is no idle speculation. The universe has shown an uncanny ability to surprise us, harboring life in the most inhospitable corners, from the crushing depths of our oceans to the boiling cauldrons of volcanic vents. Why assume that the laws of physics outside a black hole would entirely preclude organization, intelligence, or even consciousness? The narrative tension builds as we juxtapose the human mind, fragile, finite, bound by linear time, with the immense, chaotic forces of a black hole. The contrast is cinematic: vulnerability against omnipotence, curiosity against terror. Our journey does not shy away from the dark poetry of these cosmic maelstrom. Picture the accretion disk, a luminous whirlpool of matter spiraling inexorably toward the unknown, casting golden and crimson reflections across the warped fabric of spacetime. Each particle dances to a rhythm dictated by gravity so extreme that it transforms energy into a spectacle of radiant beauty. In this section, awe and fear intertwine. Viewers are made to feel the immensity and danger while being drawn irresistibly to the mystery at the center. The narrative constantly teases unanswered questions. What happens to information swallowed by this abyss? Could structures arise within such extreme pressures and tidal forces? As we weave through these opening sequences, we introduce the emotional core of the documentary. It is not merely a scientific inquiry but a philosophical and existential journey. The black hole becomes a mirror reflecting our own limitations and potential. It invites us to ponder what it means to exist, to perceive, and to struggle against forces that dwarf our understanding. By positioning the human experience alongside these cosmic phenomena, the section maintains an intimate emotional hook, even as it soars into the vastness of space. The tension oscillates between fear and wonder, curiosity and dread, ensuring that every moment engages both intellect and imagination. This section also establishes the cinematic tone that will thread through the entire documentary. The visuals are described in rich detail: gravitational lensing distorting distant galaxies into spirals of color, sudden flashes of X-rays erupting from matter on the verge of being consumed, the silent, endless darkness punctuated only by the faint glimmer of stars doomed to orbit the void. Music swells in the imagination, a symphony of suspense and grandeur. The pacing is deliberate yet dynamic, drawing viewers in gradually, immersing them in the environment, and then jolting them with moments of stark revelation and tension. By the end of this expanded introduction, the viewer is no longer a passive observer but a participant in the unfolding mystery. The black hole is established not only as a celestial object but as a narrative character, unpredictable, mesmerizing, and awe-inspiring. Questions linger in the mind: could life exist here? Could consciousness emerge in a realm where time folds and physics twists? These questions set the stage for every section that follows, ensuring the audience is emotionally and intellectually invested from the very first moment. The opening becomes both a promise and a challenge, inviting viewers to suspend disbelief and journey into a universe where the impossible may just be possible, where the line between destruction and creation blurs, and where the ultimate frontier awaits exploration in full cinematic scope. We now venture deeper beyond the veil of darkness that conceals the black hole's secrets, to explore its anatomy, a structure both terrifying and sublime, where gravity reigns supreme and space itself is twisted into unimaginable forms. Imagine approaching this cosmic entity. The stars around it appear distorted, light bends and arcs as though painted by an invisible hand, and the very air of space seems charged with a silent, foreboding tension. The black hole is no ordinary object. It is a region where mass is compressed to infinite density, where conventional physics bows to the extremes, and where the fabric of reality itself is stretched to its limits. In this section we dissect its layers, revealing a cinematic landscape of darkness and brilliance intertwined, and begin to understand the stage upon which our imagined civilization might exist. At the heart lies the singularity, a point of infinite density where space and time converge and the known laws of physics collapse. To visualize it is to confront an abyss beyond comprehension, a place where matter is squeezed into zero volume and every familiar measure, length, time, mass, loses meaning. Surrounding the singularity is the event horizon, the ultimate boundary, a threshold beyond which nothing, not even light, can escape. This invisible line is simultaneously a point of no return and a shielded vantage, a mysterious interface where the known universe meets the unknowable. The imagery here is stark and cinematic, a perfect darkness absorbing all light, bordered by the faint glimmer of infalling matter glowing under extreme heat and friction. The contrast between the radiant chaos outside and the impenetrable void within evokes both dread and fascination, a visual representation of the tension between knowledge and mystery. Encircling the black hole is the accretion disk, a whirling maelstrom of gas, dust, and stellar remnants caught in an eternal spiral. The disk shines with incandescent fury, heated by friction to millions of degrees, emitting X-rays that pierce the cosmos. The light bending near the edge creates a distorted halo, a celestial lens magnifying and twisting everything behind it. This violent beauty is the black hole's signature, a testament to the immense energy and chaos surrounding it. Cinematically, one can imagine the disk as a living, writhing entity, spinning with relentless purpose, radiating both danger and hypnotic allure. Its contrast with the dark singularity and the cold emptiness of space highlights the duality of creation and destruction, a recurring theme that threads through the narrative of a civilization daring to exist in such a realm. But the anatomy is not merely visual, it is also defined by forces so extreme they challenge human intuition. Tidal forces near the event horizon stretch matter like taffy, creating spaghettification, an eerie and violent process where objects elongate and compress under gravity's unrelenting pull. Imagine a spaceship, or perhaps a hypothetical creature, approaching this boundary, its form distorted, its atoms stretched in slow, inexorable agony. This is the theater of extremes, where survival requires ingenuity beyond anything we know. The narrative uses these descriptions to create suspense and tension, illustrating both the peril and the strange possibility of adaptation. By juxtaposing the violent environment with the potential for life to persist, we engage the audience emotionally and intellectually, planting seeds of wonder and fear simultaneously. Surrounding the accretion disk, jets of energy erupt along the black hole's rotational axis, spewing particles at near-light speed across the void. These relativistic jets illuminate the darkness like cosmic searchlights, bridging the black hole with the wider universe. They are both destructive and magnificent, a visual metaphor for the paradox at the heart of black holes, creation emerging from annihilation. The narrative emphasizes contrast, showing how these jets could both threaten and nurture, shaping the surrounding space and possibly influencing the hypothetical conditions for life. The cinematic scope here is immense, from the intimate tension of approaching matter to the galaxy-spanning spectacle of high-energy emissions, crafting a sensory experience that is both awe-inspiring and foreboding. As we examine this anatomy, the nature of observation itself becomes a theme. Light bending, time dilating, and space curving create illusions and distortions that challenge perception. A camera or telescope trying to capture the black hole sees not reality as we understand it, but a warped reflection, a cosmic mirage. This mirrors the limitations that any civilization inside or near the black hole would face, adding layers of mystery and philosophical tension. What does it mean to know a world that defies the very senses and instruments designed to measure it? By framing these questions cinematically, the audience is drawn into both the physical and existential complexity of the black hole, deepening engagement and emotional resonance. Finally, we contrast the terrifying emptiness of the singularity with the dynamic energy of the accretion disk and the graceful arcs of light distorted by gravity. This interplay of danger and beauty, destruction and brilliance, sets the tone for imagining life within such extremes. The audience is invited to feel both the vulnerability and the thrill of exploration, sensing that while the black hole is deadly, it is also a theater of unimaginable possibilities. Every visual and narrative element is designed to immerse viewers in this cosmic anatomy, creating a foundation for the subsequent exploration of time, consciousness, and civilization itself. By the end of this section, the black hole is not just a scientific object but a fully realized cinematic environment, breathtaking, dangerous, and mysterious, a stage upon which the impossible may unfold. As we move closer to the heart of the black hole, we enter a realm where the familiar rules of time and space dissolve into something both beautiful and terrifying. Imagine drifting along the warped fabric of reality, where seconds stretch into years, and distances collapse into infinitesimal points. Time near a black hole behaves not as a steady river but as a pliable medium, bending and twisting under the weight of gravity. This is the theater of relativity, where the universe's most fundamental dimensions are distorted, creating experiences utterly alien to human perception. The cinematic imagery is immediate and gripping. Stars spiral in slow motion along the event horizon, while distant galaxies flash by as if accelerated, a surreal dance of time and space that evokes awe and vertigo simultaneously. The paradoxes of time dilation are central to this section. A traveler approaching the black hole's boundary would perceive the outside universe racing ahead, decades or centuries passing in mere moments of subjective experience. Conversely, observers far from the gravitational abyss would watch the traveler seemingly frozen, approaching the event horizon in agonizing slowness. This contrast between perspectives is cinematic in its tension and scope, a visual metaphor for the gulf between human comprehension and cosmic reality. The narrative leverages this tension to evoke both fear and fascination. The black hole is a crucible where the continuity of existence itself is tested, and the concept of causality bends like light near the singularity. Space itself is warped in tandem with time, creating optical illusions that challenge the mind. Gravitational lensing bends light from distant stars into arcs and rings, while regions of the black hole's vicinity appear duplicated, distorted, or inverted. The familiar celestial sphere becomes unrecognizable, a hall of mirrors reflecting both the external universe and the black hole's internal geometry. Cinematically, this allows for a visual palette of surreal beauty, glowing arcs, twisted horizons, and the interplay of shadow and light that mirrors the narrative's thematic tension between knowledge and mystery. The viewer is drawn into an immersive sensory experience, feeling simultaneously disoriented and entranced. Within this malleable fabric of reality, hypothetical civilizations must navigate existence under conditions that defy intuition. Life here cannot rely on linear progression or predictable cause and effect. Survival requires a perception of time and space alien to humans. The narrative explores this with speculative yet scientifically grounded scenarios. Intelligent beings might perceive events across centuries as instantaneous, or experience spatially separated phenomena as contiguous. This creates suspense and wonder, as the audience contemplates minds operating under principles far removed from earthly norms. Contrast between human perception and these possibilities enhances emotional engagement, challenging viewers to expand their imagination while maintaining a visceral connection to the story. Relativity also introduces profound implications for energy, movement, and communication. Objects moving near the speed of light or near the event horizon experience extreme blue shift and redshift, altering how energy is perceived and utilized. Signals sent into or out of this environment are distorted, stretched, or lost, adding layers of mystery and tension. Cinematic storytelling emphasizes the fragility of information and the difficulty of interaction, building suspense as we ask whether civilizations could maintain knowledge, memory, or contact across such warped realities. The interplay of visual and conceptual distortion mirrors the narrative's oscillation between fear and awe, grounding speculative ideas in scientifically inspired imagery. Time and gravity intertwine to create unique phenomena, such as orbiting matter experiencing temporal paradoxes. Imagine a spaceship, or a hypothetical life form, looping eternally around the event horizon, caught in a temporal echo where the past, present, and future coexist in strange simultaneity. The cinematic depiction is haunting, trails of light looping in impossible geometries, the surroundings frozen yet alive with motion, a visual symphony that embodies both terror and beauty. This section uses such imagery to immerse the audience in the experiential reality of extreme gravity, reinforcing emotional engagement while deepening conceptual understanding. Philosophical questions naturally arise from this exploration. What does consciousness mean when time can stretch infinitely or collapse instantaneously? Could thought itself be warped, perception altered, memory fragmented across temporal gradients? By contrasting human cognition with the potential experiences of beings near or within a black hole, the narrative introduces profound existential tension. Awe is coupled with fear of the incomprehensible, and curiosity is heightened by the impossibility of direct observation. This duality, the known and the unknowable, the visible and the hidden, is a hallmark of cinematic storytelling, ensuring sustained engagement while setting the stage for deeper exploration of civilization inside such a cosmic furnace. Throughout the section, the black hole is depicted not merely as a scientific phenomenon but as a cinematic character, alive with tension, drama, and paradox. The narrative weaves together visual spectacle, scientific rigor, and philosophical reflection, creating a rich tapestry of experience. By the end, the audience is immersed in a universe where time is fluid, space is mutable, and reality itself is a malleable construct. They are prepared for the next stage of exploration, imagining how life, if it can exist at all, might adapt, survive, and even thrive within such extraordinary conditions. Suspense lingers, questions remain unanswered, and the stage is set for a journey into the unknown that is as intellectually challenging as it is emotionally thrilling. As we leave behind the familiar contours of space and time, our imagination must stretch to encompass a realm where matter, energy, and consciousness intertwine in unimaginable ways. The black hole, once a silent abyss of destruction, becomes a canvas for possibility, a crucible where the ordinary rules of life and existence may give way to extraordinary forms of organization. Picture matter swirling in the accretion disk, energized and stressed to extremes, yet somehow aligning into patterns, forming structures that hint at order emerging from chaos. The cinematic imagery is striking. Luminous spirals of gas threading through darkness, shockwaves pulsating in slow motion, and streams of particles moving as if guided by an unseen intelligence. Here, in the violent, luminous chaos, we begin to imagine the seeds of life, complexity arising in a place where no one would expect it, a spark of possibility in the heart of destruction. This section delves into the fundamental idea that, even under the extreme pressures of a black hole, energy and matter could self-organize. The narrative contrasts our fragile terrestrial life, bound by predictable environments and gentle physical laws, with a hypothetical existence that thrives in extremes. Could exotic forms of matter or plasma sustain structures that are the precursors to life? Could consciousness emerge in ways we cannot yet comprehend, relying on principles entirely alien to us? By weaving scientific speculation with cinematic storytelling, we portray these possibilities as both plausible and awe-inspiring, challenging the audience to expand the boundaries of imagination while grounding the vision in recognizable physics. We explore the dynamic interplay between chaos and order. The tidal forces and immense gravitation that stretch and crush matter could paradoxically facilitate stability on a smaller scale, shaping structures that endure where ordinary life could not. The narrative emphasizes contrast, the violent, ever-changing environment against the fragile persistence of order, the destructive pull of gravity against the organizing tendencies of energy. Cinematic scenes depict streams of plasma bending and folding into lattice-like formations, sparks of pattern flickering within storms of chaos, and hypothetical intelligence reading the rhythms of matter as a language. Through these vivid images, we suggest that possibility does not require comfort or moderation, but adaptation and resilience. Time distortion near the event horizon introduces further complexity. A moment for an external observer could encompass centuries for structures forming near the black hole's interior. This stretching of temporal experience allows for processes that would be incomprehensibly slow, or impossibly fast, under terrestrial conditions, giving hypothetical civilizations the opportunity to evolve in ways our minds struggle to imagine. Cinematic narration paints a surreal picture, a particle's life cycle spanning eons in a few visible seconds, structures slowly coalescing, collapsing, and reassembling, all in a dance dictated by warped time. The audience feels both disorientation and wonder, caught between familiarity and alienness. Energy sources within this environment are both dangerous and abundant. The accretion disk radiates vast amounts of heat and radiation, while magnetic fields twist and snap with ferocious intensity. Hypothetical life forms or civilizations could exploit these extremes, harnessing energy from the very forces that threaten annihilation. The narrative emphasizes ingenuity against adversity, a theme resonating deeply with human curiosity and resilience. Visual storytelling enhances the experience. Glowing streams of charged particles bending in magnetic maelstrom, sudden bursts of X-rays lighting the surrounding darkness, and luminous patterns forming as energy is redirected and stabilized. The imagery evokes awe, fear, and fascination simultaneously. Chemical and structural possibilities are reimagined in ways that defy terrestrial logic. Could life emerge from exotic matter, stable under intense gravity? Could information or consciousness propagate through fields and energy flows rather than traditional biological substrates? By juxtaposing earthbound biology with speculative black hole adaptations, the narrative heightens both the tension and the intrigue. Cinematic examples might include structures resembling filaments of light forming dynamic networks, or self-reinforcing loops of energy performing functions akin to metabolism or cognition. The audience is invited to speculate, to peer into the impossible, yet the grounding in extreme physics ensures plausibility remains tethered to wonder. The section also reflects on the philosophical implications of such possibilities. Life and consciousness might not require familiar forms, but rather resilience, adaptability, and the capacity to interpret and respond to the environment. The narrative uses contrast framing, the fragility of human life against the robustness of hypothetical black hole life, linear time against warped temporality, predictability against chaos. Emotional language evokes both reverence and trepidation, challenging viewers to reconsider assumptions about what life is, what intelligence can be, and how civilization might manifest under circumstances that bend the very fabric of existence. By the end of this section, the audience is positioned at the threshold of imagination. The seeds of possibility have been planted. Structures, patterns, and forms emerging from chaos, energy harnessed from destruction, and consciousness potentially arising where none should exist. The cinematic tone is immersive, alternating between violent beauty and delicate complexity, fear and hope. This sets the stage for deeper speculation about actual civilizations existing near or within the black hole, priming the viewer for the tension, ingenuity, and awe that define the sections to follow. Questions linger, suspense remains, and the imagination is fully engaged, ready to explore what it truly means to exist in the ultimate cosmic frontier. As we draw closer to the event horizon, the boundary where nothing can escape the black hole's grasp, the narrative shifts from speculation about matter and energy to imagining civilizations existing in this extreme environment. Picture a world where the very rules of physics are bent, twisted, and stretched, yet some form of intelligence persists. The cinematic imagery is immediate and visceral. Streams of glowing plasma spiraling endlessly, gravitational lensing twisting distant stars into surreal loops, and hypothetical structures clinging to stability in a maelstrom of tidal forces. The tension is palpable, the environment is lethal, unpredictable, and incomprehensibly powerful, but within this danger lies the spark of possibility. Could intelligence, adaptation, and survival exist here, in a place where time dilates, space contorts, and energy flows with a violent rhythm? The first challenge for any civilization near the event horizon is survival itself. Gravity stretches and compresses, radiation sears, and tidal forces threaten to tear matter apart at atomic scales. Yet, as we observe life on Earth thriving in extreme environments, from the crushing depths of the Mariana Trench to the boiling sulfuric vents of volcanic fissures, we are compelled to imagine forms of life capable of enduring even greater extremes. Cinematic storytelling paints these possibilities with awe-inspiring imagery. Self-organizing structures of matter stabilized by intense gravity, adaptive patterns forming in energetic plasma, and entities existing not as physical beings in our sense, but as dynamic arrangements of energy and information. The contrast between our fragile linear existence and the resilience required near a black hole heightens suspense and wonder. Time dilation near the event horizon creates profound implications for perception and society. A single orbit could encompass centuries in the outside universe, compressing generations into moments or stretching individual lifetimes into unimaginable spans. Civilization here would experience temporality in ways we cannot comprehend. History, memory, and experience may overlap, collapse, or extend across nonlinear spans. The narrative exploits this contrast to create tension, portraying both the isolation of beings trapped in warped time and the potential advantages of perceiving centuries within a single subjective instant. Cinematic visuals depict spiraling matter moving at varied temporal rates, emphasizing the alien rhythms of life and consciousness near the abyss. Communication presents another challenge. Signals attempting to cross the event horizon are distorted, stretched, or lost entirely, limiting interaction both internally and with the external universe. Civilizations may have evolved to rely on forms of perception and transmission beyond our understanding, perhaps manipulating energy flows, gravitational waves, or patterns of light within the accretion disk. The narrative leverages these constraints to maintain suspense, asking viewers to imagine intelligence operating under rules so alien that even thought itself may take forms unfamiliar to human minds. Visual storytelling brings this to life. Waves of energy pulsing in intricate sequences, streams of plasma acting as information networks, and patterns emerging and collapsing like living code within the chaos. Adaptation in such an environment requires ingenuity at scales unimaginable to us. Gravity, radiation, and energy flows are not merely obstacles, they are resources to be harnessed. Hypothetical civilizations might stabilize structures using magnetic or gravitational manipulation, extract energy from relativistic jets, or encode information in quantum states resilient to temporal distortions. Cinematic imagery portrays these feats as dynamic and beautiful, glowing filaments of energy forming persistent networks, matter folding into stable configurations amid violent motion, and entities interacting with their environment through elegant, efficient mechanisms. The audience experiences both danger and ingenuity, fear and fascination, as the narrative emphasizes the delicate balance between survival and annihilation. Social structures, perception, and cognition would also be shaped by these extremes. Communities may not be bound by space in the human sense, as proximity is distorted by gravity and time. Hierarchies could emerge based on control of energy flows or stability within chaotic currents. Communication may occur across temporal gradients, with awareness extending centuries backward or forward in subjective experience. By contrasting these alien possibilities with human societies, the narrative deepens emotional engagement, allowing viewers to reflect on the universality of adaptation, intelligence, and resilience. Cinematic storytelling reinforces this with visual metaphors. Networks of glowing matter interacting like neurons, spiraling formations representing collective organization, and bursts of energy symbolizing shared consciousness. Throughout, the section maintains a balance of awe and tension. The black hole is simultaneously a lethal environment and a stage for the extraordinary. Every visual and narrative element emphasizes contrast, destruction and creation, isolation and connectivity, danger and ingenuity. Viewers are immersed in a world that defies comprehension yet feels compellingly real through vivid cinematic imagery and logically consistent speculation. The narrative raises continual questions. How do these civilizations perceive time and space? How do they communicate, organize, and survive? Could intelligence in such an extreme environment offer insights into consciousness itself, or even challenge our understanding of life's fundamental nature? By the end of this section, the audience has traversed the event horizon conceptually, imagining civilizations resilient enough to exist where ordinary life would be obliterated. The stage is set for deeper exploration of how these beings might interact with energy, adapt technologically, and develop societies amid chaos. Suspense lingers as the boundary between the imaginable and the incomprehensible blurs. The cinematic tone, combining awe, tension, and speculative wonder, ensures that viewers remain captivated, primed to journey even further into the mysteries of existence at the edge of one of the universe's most extreme frontiers. As we peer closer to the abyss, the challenge of communication emerges as both a scientific puzzle and a narrative crucible. The black hole is a place where conventional transmission of information breaks down, where signals are stretched, twisted, and often obliterated by the immense gravity and warped fabric of spacetime. Imagine trying to speak or send a message where every word is delayed, bent, or fragmented by forces beyond comprehension. Here, communication becomes not only a necessity for survival but also a profound metaphor for the limits of understanding. Cinematic imagery brings this to life. Pulses of light struggling against the curvature of space, gravitational waves rippling across the void like a silent symphony, and patterns of energy contorting as they race toward or away from the event horizon. The tension is palpable. The effort to convey meaning becomes a dance on the edge of annihilation. The first hurdle lies in the warping of time. As a signal approaches the event horizon, it slows relative to an external observer, stretched into long, almost imperceptible durations. Conversely, information attempting to leave the vicinity is compressed, blue-shifted, and potentially obliterated. The cinematic narrative emphasizes this distortion with visuals of photons bending around the singularity, trails of energy stretched into luminous filaments, and bursts of light distorted into arcs and spirals. The audience feels the fragility of knowledge, the impossibility of certainty, and the stakes of survival in an environment where understanding itself is challenged. Contrast is key, the calm, continuous flow of human communication on Earth versus the chaotic, almost violent struggle to transmit meaning near a black hole. Within the hypothetical civilization, adaptation to these extreme conditions would require ingenuity beyond human comprehension. Communication might occur not through conventional language or signals, but through manipulation of energy patterns, magnetic fields, or gravitational perturbations. Entities may perceive sequences of events non-linearly, encoding information in ways that span subjective centuries. Cinematic imagery captures this alien sophistication, glowing currents of energy pulsing in intricate sequences, filaments of plasma bending into dynamic networks, and structures forming ephemeral messages that ripple through their environment. The audience is invited to imagine intelligence operating on a scale and in modes entirely removed from human experience, yet grounded in the extreme physics of the black hole. Time dilation adds layers of both isolation and possibility. Civilizations near the event horizon may experience moments where entire external epochs pass in seconds, compressing external history into a brief window of perception. Conversely, signals sent outward may carry centuries of accumulated knowledge in the blink of an external observer's eye, raising philosophical questions about perception, legacy, and understanding. The narrative uses contrast framing to heighten emotional engagement, the isolation of beings trapped by warped temporality versus the potential for mastery over information flows impossible for humans. Visual storytelling conveys this tension through spiraling trails of light, overlapping arcs representing overlapping timelines, and cascading bursts of energy illustrating the compression and expansion of knowledge. The environment itself shapes communication in profound ways. Intense radiation, turbulent plasma, and violent gravitational forces act as both obstacles and resources. Messages may be encoded in the very fluctuations of the accretion disk, in ripples of gravitational energy, or in the complex choreography of matter and antimatter interactions. Cinematically, these signals appear as luminous patterns within a maelstrom, ephemeral yet structured, beautiful yet deadly. Contrast between chaos and order reinforces the narrative. The black hole is both a barrier and a medium, threatening annihilation while offering unique opportunities for expression and interaction. The struggle for understanding extends beyond survival. Civilizations attempting to probe each other, or even themselves, confront fundamental epistemological questions. What does it mean to know something when the very fabric of reality distorts perception? How can information traverse boundaries where the rules of cause and effect are warped? The narrative exploits this uncertainty to maintain suspense, using cinematic analogies such as light trapped in endless loops, echoes of signals stretching across time, and patterns forming and collapsing before comprehension. Emotional engagement is sustained through the tension between curiosity and frustration, wonder and fear. By the end of this section, communication emerges as a defining element of civilization in extreme environments. The black hole is not just a place of destruction but a crucible where information, perception, and understanding are tested to their limits. The narrative highlights both the ingenuity required to survive and the profound isolation imposed by cosmic forces. The audience is left with lingering awe at the adaptability of life and intelligence, as well as a deep awareness of the barriers imposed by physics. Cinematic imagery, philosophical reflection, and scientific grounding converge to create a compelling exploration of how intelligence might persist, convey meaning, and thrive in a realm where communication itself becomes an art of survival, a dance at the edge of the impossible. As we continue our journey into the heart of the black hole, we confront the ultimate challenge of existence: survival. In a realm where gravity crushes, radiation sears, and time itself is warped, the very notion of adaptation must be redefined. Imagine a civilization navigating a space where matter and energy are in constant violent flux, where tidal forces stretch everything toward the singularity, and where every second carries the weight of centuries. This is a place of both breathtaking beauty and lethal peril, a cosmic crucible that tests the limits of ingenuity, resilience, and creativity. Cinematic imagery brings this to life: glowing streams of plasma spiraling like molten rivers, magnetic fields bending matter into intricate shapes, and luminous arcs of energy cascading across the warped fabric of spacetime. The narrative tension is immediate. Survival here is not merely difficult, it is extraordinary. The first requirement for survival is harnessing energy. The accretion disk, violent and radiant, emits immense power in the form of heat, light, and X-rays. Hypothetical civilizations could tap this energy, converting chaos into sustenance. Imagine structures or entities designed to withstand the searing heat and intense radiation, absorbing energy with elegant efficiency. Cinematic visualization portrays this as a symphony of motion, streams of glowing matter feeding into energy-harvesting networks, sparks of plasma pulsing rhythmically like a heartbeat, and radiant beams bending under gravitational distortion. Contrast is central. The destructive force of the environment is mirrored by the creative ingenuity required to extract life-giving energy, reinforcing awe and suspense simultaneously. Adaptation to extreme gravity is another fundamental challenge. Close to the event horizon, tidal forces stretch matter, creating spaghettification. Yet hypothetical life forms or civilizations might exploit these forces to stabilize structures or maintain movement. The narrative imagines dynamic, flexible architectures, living networks of energy and matter that adjust continuously to shifting gravitational gradients. Cinematic imagery amplifies the tension and beauty, ribbons of energy folding and unfolding like living organisms, streams of matter dancing along curved trajectories, and structures persisting amid violent flux. This visual storytelling emphasizes both the danger and the elegance of adaptation in extremis. Radiation and magnetic forces present both threat and opportunity. High-energy jets and electromagnetic turbulence could obliterate unprotected forms, yet they also provide the raw material for energy manipulation, signaling, and structural cohesion. Hypothetical civilizations might use magnetic fields to stabilize themselves, redirect radiation as information carriers, or catalyze matter-energy transformations that support existence. The cinematic narrative portrays these processes with vivid contrast, destructive bursts of light juxtaposed with stable, glowing formations harnessing the same energy, a visual metaphor for the tension between peril and mastery. Audience engagement is heightened through a combination of suspense, wonder, and intellectual curiosity. Time dilation adds another layer to survival strategy. Near the event horizon, temporal experience differs dramatically from the outside universe, allowing processes to unfold over subjective centuries while external observers perceive mere moments. This temporal elasticity could permit extraordinary evolutionary adaptation, complex societal organization, or the gradual refinement of energy harvesting mechanisms. The narrative uses contrast to evoke emotion. Humans perceive fleeting instants, while hypothetical civilizations experience vast epics compressed into moments. Cinematic imagery illustrates this with streams of glowing matter moving at varied speeds, temporal echoes overlapping visually, and the environment itself appearing both static and fluid, creating a sense of disorientation and awe. Adaptation is not only physical but also cognitive and organizational. Beings or structures in this environment may need to process information across warped space and time, coordinate energy flows with precision, and maintain coherence amid relentless chaos. Social structures, or their analogs, might emerge with intelligence distributed across energy networks or matter formations, functioning in ways alien to human understanding. Cinematic visualization emphasizes this. Intricate networks of glowing filaments interacting dynamically, pulses of energy conveying information, and patterns forming and dissolving in rhythm with the black hole's forces. The contrast between chaotic surroundings and structured adaptation heightens tension, reinforcing both wonder and intellectual engagement. Finally, this section explores the philosophical dimension of survival. To exist here is to redefine life, resilience, and intelligence. Ordinary notions of fragility, mortality, and limitation are irrelevant. Survival becomes an exercise in mastering extremes, embracing chaos, and transforming danger into opportunity. The narrative juxtaposes the fragility of terrestrial life with the astonishing robustness required near a black hole, provoking both fear and admiration. Cinematic imagery underscores this. Luminous structures persisting in violent maelstrom, energy flows sculpted into persistent patterns, and ephemeral formations achieving stability against impossible odds. The audience is left with a visceral sense of awe, understanding that survival here is not just persistence but an art of cosmic ingenuity. By the end of this section, viewers have traversed the core challenges of life near a black hole, mastering energy, adapting to gravity, leveraging radiation, negotiating time distortion, and evolving intelligence capable of operating under extremes. The cinematic tone combines terror, beauty, and fascination, immersing the audience in an environment simultaneously deadly and exhilarating. Suspense, curiosity, and emotional engagement are maintained, preparing viewers for subsequent sections that explore the limits of physics, consciousness, and civilization in the most extreme frontier the universe offers. This is survival elevated to an extraordinary, almost mythical scale, both scientifically grounded and vividly imagined, a crucible where life meets the ultimate test of existence. As we journey deeper into the enigmatic heart of the black hole, we confront a realm where the familiar laws of physics dissolve, giving way to phenomena that defy human intuition. Here, in this extreme environment, the universe behaves in ways both beautiful and incomprehensible. Space bends, time dilates, and matter and energy interact in forms that challenge our very understanding of reality. Cinematic imagery paints a surreal tableau, streams of matter tracing luminous spirals, gravitational lensing warping distant galaxies into impossible shapes, and energy jets slicing through darkness with unrelenting ferocity. In this realm, the rules we rely upon on Earth no longer suffice, and the boundaries of possibility are pushed to their ultimate limits. It is a place where imagination must meet science, where speculation is guided by the extreme conditions of nature, and where the seeds of extraordinary civilizations might take root. The first step in this exploration is understanding how physics itself is altered near and within the black hole. General relativity predicts that spacetime curves dramatically under extreme mass, and quantum mechanics suggests phenomena that might only reveal themselves under such intensity. Particles behave unpredictably, light bends in ways that challenge perception, energy flows in loops and eddies that cannot be easily measured. Cinematic visualization conveys this: glowing currents of plasma twisting around invisible contours, flashes of radiation flaring unpredictably, and shadows bending in patterns that seem almost alive. The contrast between the observable chaos and the underlying mathematical elegance creates tension and wonder, inviting viewers to grapple with both fear and fascination simultaneously. Exotic matter and unknown forms of energy may exist within this extreme environment. Hypothetical civilizations could exploit these resources, harnessing quantum fluctuations, zero-point energy, or other forms of physics that remain theoretical to humans. The narrative explores these possibilities with cinematic scope: fields of energy undulating like invisible oceans, particles looping in intricate dances, and matter forming transient structures stabilized by forces beyond our comprehension. The audience is drawn into the mystery, experiencing both the danger and potential of an environment that seems hostile yet teeming with hidden opportunity. The very concept of causality may be challenged near a black hole. With time dilation so extreme, events that appear sequential externally could occur simultaneously locally, and actions could propagate in ways that seem paradoxical. This introduces profound philosophical and scientific tension. How would a civilization perceive cause and effect when the flow of time is nonlinear? Cinematic depictions illustrate this through overlapping trails of light, echoes of energy pulsating at multiple rhythms, and structures forming and collapsing in patterns that appear both orderly and chaotic. The viewer senses the strangeness of existence in a place where the foundations of understanding are warped beyond recognition. Quantum phenomena may dominate at the singularity, allowing behaviors that defy classical expectation. Tunneling, entanglement, and superposition could all play roles in structuring matter or transmitting information in ways unimaginable on Earth. The narrative presents these ideas visually and emotionally: streams of light branching and recombining, particles interacting across distances without apparent connection, and luminous networks forming dynamic, almost conscious patterns. The contrast between what is known and what is theorized heightens suspense, reinforcing the mystery and intellectual engagement, while cinematic imagery grounds abstract ideas in sensory experience. The extreme environment may also reshape evolution and adaptation. Conventional biology as we know it may be impossible, yet life, or consciousness, might emerge through mechanisms we cannot yet imagine. Patterns of energy could encode memory, intelligence might propagate through structural stability rather than organic neurons, and survival could depend on mastering quantum and relativistic forces. The narrative explores these possibilities with vivid cinematic scenes: filaments of energy organizing into coherent forms, luminous structures maintaining balance amid violent motion, and rhythmic pulses signaling adaptation and awareness. The tension between fragility and resilience, chaos and order, evokes both awe and fear, reinforcing the emotional core of the exploration. Communication, perception, and cognition would also be redefined. Any civilization would need to interpret and interact with information in forms alien to humans, processing nonlinear time sequences, warped spatial relations, and energy fluctuations. Cinematic visualization portrays this as dynamic networks of light and energy, pulsating and reshaping continuously, representing intelligence attuned to extreme physics. Contrast between human perception and these alien experiences underscores both the limitations of our understanding and the extraordinary possibilities of life in such an environment. By the end of this section, the audience is immersed in a vision of physics beyond our comprehension, where extreme gravity, quantum phenomena, and warped spacetime create both peril and potential. The narrative emphasizes that life in such a realm is not merely improbable, it is revolutionary, existing on the edge of what science and imagination can reconcile. Suspense, awe, and curiosity converge, leaving viewers poised to explore how evolution, adaptation, and civilization might emerge under these extraordinary conditions. Cinematic imagery, philosophical depth, and scientific speculation intertwine to create a sense of wonder, setting the stage for deeper consideration of intelligence, consciousness, and survival in the black hole's ultimate frontier. As we delve further into the black hole's inscrutable depths, the question of evolution emerges as both a scientific and philosophical frontier. On Earth, life has adapted to extremes, volcanic vents, crushing ocean depths, and the vacuum of space, but the environment near a black hole transcends anything terrestrial life could endure. Imagine an ecosystem governed not by familiar conditions but by tidal forces that stretch and compress matter, radiation so intense it could shred conventional structures, and time so warped that seconds and centuries coexist in strange simultaneity. The cinematic imagery is vivid and surreal, filaments of energy bending and twisting in luminous arcs, structures forming and collapsing in slow-motion cycles dictated by warped time, and streams of plasma organizing into patterns that hint at persistence and intelligence. In this extreme theater, evolution takes on forms that are not merely adaptive but extraordinary, almost unrecognizable to human eyes. The fundamental principle of evolution, variation, selection, and adaptation, must operate under radical constraints. Matter itself may exist in exotic forms, with properties that permit structural stability in crushing gravity or intense radiation. Hypothetical life forms could arise as coherent energy structures, resilient against tidal forces, or as dynamic plasma configurations stabilized by magnetic or gravitational interactions. Cinematic storytelling portrays these possibilities with awe-inspiring detail, glowing lattices of energy folding and unfolding, ephemeral filaments persisting against violent flows, and rhythmic pulses that suggest both metabolic and cognitive activity. The contrast between fragility and robustness, chaos and coherence, underscores the extraordinary challenge of evolving under such extremes. Time dilation profoundly shapes evolutionary processes. Near the event horizon, generations may experience lifespans incomprehensibly long compared to external observers, allowing incremental refinement of structures, strategies, and intelligence. Conversely, evolutionary events in the outside universe may seem compressed or imperceptible to inhabitants near the black hole. The narrative exploits this contrast to heighten suspense and wonder. Evolution becomes a fluid, almost artistic process, unfolding at rates and scales unimaginable on Earth. Cinematic visualization reinforces this. Overlapping trails of glowing structures, sequences of formation and decay stretched across subjective centuries, and cycles of adaptation occurring in what appears externally as instantaneous flashes of light. Energy utilization is central to evolutionary survival. The accretion disk and surrounding phenomena provide both threat and resource. Radiation, plasma flows, and magnetic turbulence can destroy or sustain life. Hypothetical civilizations could develop mechanisms to capture and store energy, stabilize forms against violent currents, and transmit information in nonlinear temporal sequences. Cinematic imagery dramatizes these interactions, radiant streams of matter feeding luminous networks, magnetic fields sculpting energy into persistent structures, and pulsating filaments coordinating activity across warped spacetime. The audience is drawn into a world where ingenuity is inseparable from survival, and where evolution is both a creative and perilous process. Adaptation extends beyond physical resilience to cognition and perception. Beings in this environment may perceive events across warped temporal and spatial scales, interpret energy patterns as information, and respond to environmental fluctuations that would overwhelm any human mind. This expanded concept of evolution incorporates intelligence as an emergent property of adaptation, suggesting that cognition itself could be fine-tuned to the extremes of physics. Cinematic depictions enhance engagement. Networks of luminous pulses interacting in complex sequences, structures reorganizing in response to tidal forces, and dynamic energy forms communicating through subtle modulations of plasma and radiation. The contrast between human understanding and alien experience evokes awe, tension, and intellectual curiosity. Social structures, or their analogs, may arise in ways entirely alien. Cooperation, competition, and organization could be encoded in energy flows, spatial positioning, or synchronized activity across generations stretched by time dilation. The narrative emphasizes contrast, human hierarchies and social bonds versus alien coordination mediated through forces and mediums we cannot perceive. Cinematic visualization brings this to life. Glowing arrays of interacting filaments forming transient, shifting patterns, coordinated pulses propagating across chaotic currents, and ephemeral structures achieving stability against seemingly insurmountable odds. The audience experiences both the drama of survival and the elegance of adaptation under extreme conditions. Finally, philosophical implications emerge. Evolution in this environment challenges our definitions of life, intelligence, and consciousness. Survival may depend not on physical forms familiar to us, but on the ability to harness energy, perceive nonlinear reality, and adapt dynamically to forces beyond comprehension. The narrative frames these ideas with both tension and wonder, inviting reflection on the nature of existence itself. Cinematic imagery underscores this. Structures persisting amid violence, energy patterns resembling thought or memory, and ephemeral formations that hint at awareness and resilience. Contrast framing, chaos versus coherence, fragility versus robustness, fear versus curiosity, maintains emotional engagement while provoking contemplation. By the end of this section, the audience has explored the extraordinary possibilities of evolution under the black hole's extreme conditions. Life is not merely surviving but adapting in ways that challenge human imagination, thriving amid forces that would annihilate earthly organisms. The cinematic tone, sublime, tense, and intellectually stimulating, immerses viewers in a universe where persistence, adaptation, and ingenuity manifest in forms both alien and profoundly awe-inspiring. Suspense, wonder, and curiosity converge, preparing the audience to envision the societal and technological structures that might emerge from such evolutionary extremes, setting the stage for the next exploration of civilizations shaped by singularity. As we continue our descent into the black hole's most extreme regions, the focus shifts from the evolution of life to the emergence of complex systems and civilizations. In an environment where gravity crushes, time dilates, and energy flows in chaotic torrents, the formation of order is both miraculous and necessary. Imagine a civilization not as we know it, composed of flesh and bone, but as an intricate network of energy, plasma, or exotic matter, entities that survive by synchronizing with the rhythms of the black hole itself. Cinematic imagery immerses the audience. Luminous filaments coiling and branching like neural networks, radiant arcs of plasma forming dynamic architectures, and pulses of energy propagating across warped space-time as though alive. The narrative emphasizes contrast, chaos versus coherence, destruction versus creation, the unimaginable violence of the environment against the fragile persistence of structure. Central to this speculative civilization is the harnessing of energy. The accretion disk, the relativistic jets, and the surrounding magnetic fields are simultaneously destructive and life-giving. Hypothetical entities could absorb energy from plasma flows, stabilize structures using magnetic or gravitational manipulation, or store information encoded in energy patterns. Cinematic visualization portrays this in vivid detail. Glowing currents feeding complex lattices, radiant energy bending and weaving around stable hubs, and dynamic formations maintaining coherence amid violent motion. The audience is invited to witness ingenuity at a scale and sophistication that surpasses human technology, grounded in the harsh yet magnificent physics of the black hole. Temporal distortions add another layer of complexity. Near the event horizon, time stretches and contracts relative to the external universe, allowing civilizations to experience subjective epochs that could encompass eons in mere moments externally. This nonlinear temporality transforms the way systems organize, learn, and evolve. Processes that would require millennia on Earth could unfold in minutes, allowing rapid experimentation, adaptation, and refinement of survival strategies. Cinematic imagery enhances this concept. Overlapping pulses of energy, streams of matter evolving in complex loops, and structures forming and dissolving in patterns that blend past, present, and future. Contrast between human temporal perception and these extraordinary scales heightens awe and curiosity. Communication and information processing become central to maintaining coherence. Entities may exchange information through subtle modulations of energy, gravitational waves, or coordinated patterns of matter and plasma. Unlike human communication, which relies on sequential linear signals, these civilizations may transmit information across spatial and temporal gradients, perceiving events before or after they occur in conventional terms. Cinematic depictions dramatize this. Networks of glowing filaments pulsing in intricate synchrony, ripples of energy encoding complex messages, and luminous structures interacting in ways that suggest awareness and coordination. Suspense and wonder are maintained as viewers contemplate intelligence operating under laws both familiar and alien. The architecture of civilization is itself dictated by the extreme environment. Stable structures may emerge from dynamic flows, anchored by magnetic fields, energy gradients, or coherent oscillations of plasma. These formations are not static. They are constantly adapting, responding to tidal forces, radiation bursts, and temporal distortions. Cinematic visualization conveys this as a ballet of light and motion, radiant networks folding and unfolding, pulses cascading across vast distances, and dynamic patterns maintaining functional integrity despite the chaos. Contrast framing, stability amid turbulence, order within disorder, heightens engagement and reinforces the stakes of survival. Survival also requires ingenuity in information preservation. The extreme conditions threaten entropy and destruction. Yet hypothetical civilizations could encode memory and knowledge within resilient energy configurations, gravitationally stabilized structures, or quantum states. This ensures continuity, adaptation, and learning even under violent conditions. Cinematic storytelling brings this to life. Patterns of glowing energy forming persistent loops, filaments storing dynamic sequences of information, and ephemeral structures translating environmental chaos into functional knowledge. The interplay of danger and mastery creates a compelling tension that engages both intellect and imagination. Finally, the emergence of civilization raises profound philosophical questions. What does society mean when entities are energy-based, exist across warp time, and communicate through nonlinear channels? How does cooperation, hierarchy, or collective purpose manifest under these extreme conditions? The narrative leverages contrast, familiar human social structures versus alien organization, individual survival versus collective adaptation, and chaos versus coherence. Cinematic imagery reinforces these themes. Coordinated filaments interacting like neurons in a vast brain, synchronized pulses propagating across turbulent currents, and dynamic hubs maintaining stability in a sea of instability. Viewers are left both awestruck and intellectually stimulated, contemplating the limits of life, intelligence, and civilization itself. By the end of this section, the audience has witnessed the speculative birth of civilizations uniquely adapted to the black hole's extremes. Order emerges from chaos, intelligence persists amid destruction, and social and functional complexity develops under conditions unimaginable to human experience. Cinematic tone, philosophical reflection, and scientific grounding converge to create a compelling vision of existence at the edge of the impossible, leaving viewers eager to explore the next stages: culture, cognition, and technology in a world defined by singularity. As we venture deeper into the speculative civilization forming near the black hole, we must confront the concept of cognition and consciousness under conditions that defy our conventional understanding. Here, intelligence is not necessarily biological in the way we know it. It may emerge as a dynamic pattern of energy, plasma, or exotic matter, continuously interacting with its environment. Imagine awareness not as a linear, sequential process but as a multidimensional phenomenon, capable of perceiving events across warped time and curved space simultaneously. Cinematic imagery captures this. Luminous filaments pulsating rhythmically, networks of energy folding into intricate patterns, and radiant arcs of matter interacting with gravity and radiation in ways that resemble thought processes. The narrative emphasizes contrast between human cognition and alien awareness, linear time and nonlinear perception, fragility and resilience, evoking both wonder and existential curiosity. Time dilation plays a pivotal role in shaping consciousness. Near the event horizon, subjective experience could stretch or compress dramatically relative to the external universe. A single moment for one entity might span centuries for another, enabling thought, reflection, and adaptation on temporal scales impossible on Earth. Cinematic depiction shows energy networks looping through space-time, pulses overlapping in multiple sequences, and entities perceiving cause and effect in ways that appear paradoxical to outside observers. The audience experiences a sense of vertigo and awe, imagining minds operating in a realm where past, present, and future are intertwined, and cognition transcends ordinary perception. The environment itself directly informs intelligence. Extreme gravity, radiation, and magnetic turbulence are not merely challenges, they are stimuli and resources that shape perception, decision-making, and adaptation. Hypothetical beings may read the fluctuations of plasma as signals, interpret gravitational waves as language, or synchronize their awareness with the rhythm of relativistic jets. Cinematic imagery conveys this beautifully: luminous filaments twisting and converging, waves of energy propagating like thought across chaotic space, and patterns emerging that reflect both local adaptation and global coherence. Contrast is key: the destructive potential of the environment against the elegant, emergent sophistication of intelligence. Communication and information processing are integral to cognition. Traditional sequential signals are inadequate in a realm where time is nonlinear and spatial relations are warped. Entities might transmit knowledge through patterns of energy that evolve across centuries of subjective time, or synchronize consciousness across vast distances using gravitational or quantum phenomena. The cinematic narrative brings this to life: pulses of light encoding vast networks of information, radiant structures interacting with one another in choreographed complexity, and energy loops creating persistent memory and shared awareness. The audience is drawn into the mechanics and poetry of cognition that is simultaneously alien and compellingly logical within its extreme context. Memory and learning take on new dimensions. Instead of relying on physical substrates like neurons, consciousness might be encoded in transient but resilient energy configurations, magnetic flux loops, or stable plasma networks. These forms allow knowledge to persist across tidal distortions, temporal dilation, and environmental turbulence. Cinematic depictions illustrate this vividly: glowing strands maintaining patterns despite surrounding chaos, energy pulses looping to reinforce information, and dynamic formations adapting to new stimuli while preserving continuity. The contrast between ephemeral environment and persistent cognition underscores the remarkable resilience and ingenuity of these hypothetical minds. Philosophically, cognition in this environment challenges the human understanding of self, identity, and intelligence. Awareness may not be individual in a traditional sense. It could be distributed across networks, shared among formations, or embedded in the patterns of energy and matter themselves. The narrative explores these ideas through contrast framing: human individualism versus distributed consciousness, linear thought versus multitemporal perception, and fragility versus robustness. Cinematic imagery reinforces these concepts: networks of radiant filaments interacting like a collective brain, pulses of light reflecting adaptive decision-making, and structures persisting in coordinated activity despite violent environmental fluctuations. Finally, consciousness in the black hole environment raises profound questions about creativity, problem-solving, and culture. Intelligence here is inseparable from survival, yet it may also explore aesthetic, exploratory, and philosophical domains. Entities might create patterns of beauty in plasma flows, encode stories in the dynamics of energy, or perceive phenomena across time and space in ways that challenge human imagination. Cinematic visualization portrays this with luminous tapestries, rhythmic sequences of energy, and complex interactions that evoke both intelligence and artistry. The audience is invited to marvel at consciousness unbound by terrestrial limits, where thought itself becomes a dynamic, adaptive, and visually spectacular force. By the end of this section, viewers have been immersed in the cognitive reality of civilizations near the black hole. Minds that perceive, process, and adapt under extremes of gravity, time, and energy, displaying forms of awareness that are at once alien, awe-inspiring, and plausible within the laws of physics. The cinematic tone, evoking wonder, suspense, and intellectual curiosity, prepares the audience for the next exploration: how such cognition might manifest socially, culturally, and technologically, and what this reveals about the potential for life and civilization in the most extreme frontier of the universe. As we journey further into the extraordinary realm near the black hole, the emergence of culture and society among these hypothetical civilizations becomes a compelling focus. Civilization here is not built of familiar matter or organized in linear time. Instead, it is a tapestry of energy flows, plasma structures, and patterns of information dynamically interacting with the extreme environment. Imagine a society whose very essence is shaped by gravitational tides, radiation streams, and warped space-time, entities communicating across temporal gradients, coordinating survival through energy networks, and encoding knowledge in structures that persist through immense tidal stresses. Cinematic imagery captures this: luminous filaments weaving complex patterns, glowing networks pulsing rhythmically in synchrony, and radiant structures forming dynamic communities amid chaos. Contrast is central: the extreme hostility of the environment versus the ingenuity and cohesion of these civilizations evokes both awe and suspense. Energy management lies at the heart of societal organization. The accretion disk, relativistic jets, and magnetic turbulence are both hazards and vital resources. Civilizations must coordinate the capture, distribution, and storage of energy to maintain structures, communicate, and support cognitive functions. Cinematic visualization portrays this in breathtaking detail, glowing currents feeding intricate lattices of energy, radiant arcs bending and stabilizing hubs of activity, and dynamic formations interacting seamlessly to maintain stability amid turbulent flows. Contrast between destructive environmental forces and elegant, emergent societal organization heightens both tension and wonder, inviting the audience to marvel at adaptive ingenuity in extreme conditions. Time dilation shapes the experience of social dynamics. Generations may span subjective centuries, and events that unfold externally over eons might be compressed into brief intervals for inhabitants. This nonlinear temporality transforms memory, hierarchy, and governance. Societies may coordinate across temporal scales, maintain continuity of knowledge in ways unimaginable on Earth, or develop adaptive strategies based on events that are simultaneously past, present, and future. Cinematic depictions convey this with overlapping pulses of energy, spiraling networks evolving in loops, and radiant hubs interacting across warped space, creating an immersive sense of temporally fluid social complexity. Contrast between human linear perception and these multi-temporal dynamics reinforces awe and intellectual engagement. Communication and coordination are integral to social cohesion. Signals may propagate through energy patterns, gravitational perturbations, or plasma oscillations, allowing distributed intelligence to operate collectively. Unlike human societies, which rely on language and physical proximity, these civilizations might transmit complex information across vast regions of warped space and time, achieving synchronization and collective decision-making on a scale both alien and fascinating. Cinematic imagery dramatizes this. Filaments of glowing energy pulsing in intricate sequences, radiant structures forming dynamic networks, and coordinated oscillations suggesting a form of distributed cognition or governance. Suspense and fascination arise as viewers contemplate the ingenuity required to maintain coherence in such an extreme environment. Innovation and adaptation are also cultural imperatives. Societies must constantly adjust to fluctuating energy flows, tidal forces, and temporal distortions. Technology, or its analog in energy-based systems, emerges not merely for convenience but for survival. Entities may manipulate magnetic fields, stabilize plasma structures, or encode adaptive strategies within resilient energy formations. Cinematic visualization conveys this with radiant lattices adjusting to turbulent currents, pulses of energy propagating corrective signals, and dynamic networks maintaining functionality despite extreme perturbations. Contrast between environmental hostility and cultural ingenuity reinforces emotional engagement, inspiring both awe and intellectual curiosity. Knowledge preservation and memory are central to civilization. The extreme environment threatens entropy and disintegration, yet societies may encode information in resilient energy structures, persistent plasma configurations, or quantum states. This ensures continuity of culture, learning, and collective intelligence despite violent conditions. Cinematic depictions illustrate this. Glowing strands maintaining loops of encoded information, pulsating filaments storing dynamic sequences of knowledge, and ephemeral structures preserving continuity through constant adaptation. Contrast between fragility of the environment and resilience of civilization amplifies narrative tension and emotional resonance. Finally, the emergence of values, aesthetics, and purpose may define these civilizations in ways we can only speculate. Patterns of energy may encode stories, experiences, or artistic expressions. Radiant filaments may form elaborate visual texts of culture, and synchronization across temporal and spatial scales may constitute rituals or collective understanding. Cinematic visualization brings this to life. Radiant tapestries forming ephemeral art, rhythmic pulses conveying shared experience, and coordinated energy patterns expressing social identity. The contrast between the harshness of the physical environment and the elegance of cultural expression evokes both wonder and reverence, highlighting the profound adaptability of intelligence under extreme conditions. By the end of this section, the audience has experienced a vision of civilization that transcends terrestrial norms. Societies operating across warped time and space, encoding knowledge and culture in resilient energy structures, and coordinating survival amid extremes of gravity and radiation. The cinematic tone, simultaneously sublime, tense, and intellectually stimulating, immerses viewers in an environment where intelligence and society flourish against overwhelming odds. Suspense, awe, and curiosity converge, preparing the audience for the next exploration, technological innovation, adaptation, and the potential for transcendence within the black hole's extraordinary frontier. As we journey ever deeper into the enigmatic heart of the black hole, the narrative turns toward technology and innovation as manifestations of intelligence and adaptation. In a civilization composed of energy, plasma, or exotic matter, the concept of technology transcends the familiar mechanical and digital tools of humanity. Here, technology may be indistinguishable from life itself, a dynamic interplay of energy manipulation, structural stabilization, and information processing that ensures survival in an environment dominated by crushing gravity, intense radiation, and warped spacetime. Cinematic imagery immerses the viewer in a realm of radiant, flowing structures, intricate filaments of energy coalescing into functional forms, and pulses of light conveying both computation and communication. Contrast is central, the violent, chaotic forces of the black hole juxtaposed with the elegance and precision of adaptive technological systems, evoking awe, tension, and wonder. Energy harnessing is the cornerstone of technological innovation in this extreme environment. The accretion disk, relativistic jets, and magnetic turbulence provide both threat and resource. Hypothetical civilizations may capture, store, and redistribute energy through resilient structures, magnetic field manipulation, or dynamic plasma networks. Cinematic visualization portrays this vividly, streams of glowing plasma feeding intricate lattices, radiant arcs stabilizing hubs of activity, and dynamic energy networks responding in real time to fluctuations in the environment. The contrast between destructive forces and adaptive mastery emphasizes both the peril and ingenuity inherent in survival, creating emotional engagement and intellectual fascination. Structural stabilization is another technological imperative. Tidal forces near the event horizon stretch and compress matter unpredictably, threatening the persistence of any formation. Hypothetical civilizations may engineer self-organizing architectures capable of flexibly adjusting to these forces, using magnetic, gravitational, or energy-based reinforcement. Cinematic imagery dramatizes this. Radiant networks bending and folding like living organisms, luminous filaments maintaining coherent patterns amid violent motion, and dynamic structures adapting instantaneously to environmental stress. The narrative emphasizes contrast, chaos versus order, instability versus resilience, danger versus innovation, heightening suspense and awe. Information processing and computation take on new dimensions in this environment. Time dilation allows entities to experience subjective epochs while external observers perceive fleeting instants, enabling rapid learning, adaptation, and experimentation. Knowledge may be encoded in patterns of energy, resilient plasma loops, or quantum states that survive environmental turbulence. Cinematic depiction illustrates this. Overlapping pulses of energy encoding complex sequences, dynamic networks reorganizing to optimize efficiency, and radiant formations functioning as collective processors for survival, coordination, and innovation. The contrast between alien information processing and human cognition reinforces intellectual engagement and wonder. Communication technology is similarly transformed. Conventional signals are inadequate in warped spacetime, but civilizations might exploit gravitational waves, energy modulation, or plasma oscillations to transmit information across distances and temporal gradients. Cinematic visualization brings this to life, glowing filaments pulsing in coordinated sequences, radiant arcs propagating data across chaotic currents, and energy structures interacting like a distributed nervous system. The tension between environmental unpredictability and the precision of communication underscores both suspense and awe, engaging the audience in the ingenuity of alien technological adaptation. Adaptation extends to defensive and protective innovations. The environment is not merely hostile, it is lethal. Tidal forces, radiation, and extreme energy flows threaten annihilation. Hypothetical civilizations may develop self-reinforcing structures, dynamic shields of energy, or adaptive configurations capable of withstanding catastrophic fluctuations. Cinematic imagery portrays this dramatically, radiant barriers bending destructive plasma streams, filaments folding to absorb shocks, and dynamic networks preserving coherence against the most violent environmental disturbances. Contrast between vulnerability and resilience reinforces emotional tension and admiration for adaptive ingenuity. Finally, technology and innovation are intertwined with cognition and society. Intelligence, culture, and communication converge through adaptive systems that function simultaneously as tools, infrastructure, and extensions of consciousness. Cinematic storytelling illustrates this. Energy networks pulsating with collective thought, radiant structures coordinating societal functions, and luminous formations encoding memory, culture, and knowledge. Contrast framing, chaotic environment versus sophisticated adaptation, ephemeral forces versus persistent structures. Evokes wonder, suspense, and deep intellectual engagement, inviting viewers to contemplate the extraordinary creativity of life under extremes. By the end of this section, the audience has witnessed a civilization whose technology is inseparable from life itself. Adaptive, resilient, and profoundly integrated with environment, cognition, and society. Cinematic tone, sublime, tense, and intellectually stimulating, immerses viewers in a vision where innovation is not optional but essential, where mastery of energy, structure, and information defines survival and flourishing. Suspense, awe, and curiosity converge, setting the stage for the next exploration. The philosophical and existential implications of intelligence and civilization existing at the edge of cosmic extremes. As we venture even closer to the black hole singularity, the narrative turns toward the philosophical and existential dimensions of civilizations thriving under such extreme conditions. Here, intelligence, adaptation, and survival are intertwined with profound questions about the nature of existence, perception, and reality itself. Imagine beings whose cognition spans centuries in subjective time, whose awareness flows across warped space-time, and whose very forms are sculpted by the violent physics of the black hole. Cinematic imagery immerses the audience in a sublime vision. Luminous networks of energy bending and twisting like living thought, radiant filaments interacting in elegant coordination, and streams of plasma forming ephemeral yet coherent structures that defy conventional notions of life. Contrast is essential. The relentless destruction of the environment juxtaposed with the emergence of purpose, consciousness, and beauty, evoking awe, suspense, and philosophical reflection. Time dilation profoundly shapes existential perspective. Near the event horizon, subjective moments may encompass entire eons in the outside universe, while external centuries may pass in what seems like an instant internally. This temporal distortion transforms perception, memory, and experience, leading to forms of awareness and reflection inaccessible to terrestrial life. Cinematic visualization portrays overlapping streams of glowing energy, pulsating networks evolving in loops, and radiant arcs representing layered consciousness, suggesting an awareness that is simultaneously immediate and eternal. Contrast between human temporal experience and these alien perspectives heightens intellectual engagement and wonder, inviting viewers to contemplate existence in ways that challenge intuition. The extreme environment also informs philosophical understanding. Gravity, radiation, and energy flows are both constraints and guides, shaping cognition, culture, and technological adaptation. Beings here might perceive patterns in energy currents as meaning, interpret plasma oscillations as language, or encode knowledge in structures resilient to destruction. Cinematic imagery conveys this with elegance. Radiant filaments forming dynamic scripts, energy networks interacting in choreographed sequences, and glowing patterns emerging and dissolving like living philosophy. The contrast between the apparent chaos of the environment and the coherent patterns of intelligence and culture evokes both fear and admiration, emphasizing the extraordinary adaptability of life under extremes. Existential questions arise regarding identity, individuality, and consciousness. In such a realm, awareness may be distributed across energy networks or shared among formations, blurring conventional distinctions between self and collective. Memory may be encoded not in physical neurons but in resilient patterns of energy, allowing continuity across time and space distortions. Cinematic visualization dramatizes this. Glowing networks interacting like vast, sentient systems, pulses of energy representing distributed thought, and structures persisting through environmental turbulence, illustrating consciousness as a dynamic, adaptive phenomenon. Contrast between human notions of individuality and this fluid, distributed cognition heightens suspense, wonder, and intellectual curiosity. Purpose and meaning in such civilizations are intertwined with survival, adaptation, and mastery of environment. Yet, intelligence may also explore aesthetic, exploratory, or philosophical domains, encoding ideas, experiences, and narratives in patterns of energy. Cinematic storytelling brings this to life. Radiant tapestries forming ephemeral art, synchronized energy pulses conveying collective reflection, and luminous filaments coalescing into structures suggestive of philosophical insight. Contrast between destructive forces and the creation of meaning evokes awe and emphasizes the profound ingenuity and resilience of these hypothetical civilizations. The singularity itself introduces ultimate existential tension. As the center of the black hole represents a point where spacetime curvature becomes infinite and classical physics breaks down, civilizations existing nearby confront boundaries of understanding, perception, and existence. Cinematic imagery captures this: glowing energy streams converging toward an invisible point, matter twisting in impossible configurations, and radiant networks adapting in the shadow of incomprehensible forces. Contrast framing emphasizes fear versus curiosity, destruction versus discovery, and the unknown versus the emergent, sustaining suspense and emotional engagement. Finally, these philosophical dimensions extend to ethics, cooperation, and societal organization. Survival and flourishing may depend not only on individual adaptation but on collective intelligence, shared resources, and coordinated energy flows. Civilizations may encode values, narratives, and ethical principles in resilient patterns of energy, ensuring coherence and continuity amid the extreme environment. Cinematic depiction dramatizes this: coordinated networks of radiant filaments interacting with precision, dynamic energy structures maintaining societal coherence, and pulses of light representing collective wisdom. The contrast between the harshness of the environment and the elegance of societal adaptation reinforces awe, suspense, and intellectual stimulation. By the end of this section, the audience has explored the philosophical and existential fabric of civilizations at the black hole's edge, beings whose cognition, culture, and purpose are inseparable from extreme physics, whose awareness transcends linear time, and whose society and technology are dynamically intertwined with survival. The cinematic tone, sublime, intellectually provocative, and emotionally engaging, immerses viewers in a realm where existence itself is both extraordinary and terrifying, blending wonder, curiosity, and suspense. This prepares the audience for deeper exploration of consciousness, adaptation, and the ultimate limits of life and civilization in the black hole's ultimate frontier. At the threshold of the event horizon, where light bends back upon itself and time slows to near stillness, the civilizations that dared to dwell here begin to undergo a final metamorphosis. The immense gravitational pressure becomes not an obstacle, but a sculptor, shaping consciousness, matter, and energy into new forms of existence. The beings who once inhabited the outer orbits of the accretion disk have now learned to manipulate gravity itself, weaving it as an instrument of creation. They are no longer defined by the limitations of biological life or mechanical constructs. They are living waves of intelligence, fluid, radiant, and capable of merging thought with the forces that govern the cosmos. Here, everything vibrates. Magnetic currents arc and twist like serpents of fire. Fields of radiation pulse in fractal harmonies. Each pulse is not chaos but communication, a network of intelligence exchanging data, memory, and emotion across luminous threads. Their world is not solid. It is woven from light, energy, and gravity, each intertwined in a symphony that only beings evolved in this environment could comprehend. To them, the black hole's gravitational field is both environment and language. Every fluctuation is meaning, every distortion is message. They read spacetime the way ancient civilizations once read constellations. Their existence has become a form of equilibrium, a fragile harmony between the violence of collapse and the persistence of order. Their energy harvesting systems draw directly from the accretion flow, stabilizing turbulence into coherence. What once appeared as chaos now becomes rhythm. The civilizations construct vast energy lattices, shimmering networks of charged particles orbiting in perfect synchronization with the black hole's spin. These lattices serve not only as habitats but as repositories of consciousness. Each node hums with sentient energy, and through their interaction, collective intelligence emerges. They do not build cities. They become them. Within these radiant networks, memory is stored in the oscillation of magnetic fields, and identity flows as electrical current. Thought itself has no fixed location. It drifts through the lattice, sometimes concentrating, sometimes dispersing. To them, individuality is a wave phenomenon, temporary and fluid. When coherence fades, the individual dissolves into the collective, and when energy condenses, new consciousness arises. Death no longer exists as cessation. It has been replaced by transformation. They live as patterns of resonance, always shifting, always reconfiguring. Their culture is not written in words or symbols, but in the geometry of plasma and the rhythm of gravitational flux. The accretion disk that once devoured everything now glows with meaning. Every spiral of gas, every jet of light carries encoded information. The stories, discoveries, and reflections of civilizations who learned to survive on the edge of annihilation. Their scientists have long ceased to measure in simple units of energy or matter. Their mathematics incorporates emotion, intuition, and harmony, treating consciousness as a dimension of reality. The distinction between science and philosophy, technology and spirituality, no longer holds meaning. Every thought, every experiment, is an act of communion with the universe itself. They understand that to survive near the event horizon is to synchronize with it, to become part of its rhythm. Their evolution has been guided not by competition, but by resonance. They do not fight nature, they align with it. Their progress comes through the art of surrender, a deep acceptance of the black hole's inevitability, and an understanding that within that inevitability lies freedom. The closer they move toward the horizon, the more their awareness expands. They perceive patterns in the gravitational field, subtle harmonics that resemble consciousness itself. Some among them believe that the black hole is alive, that its singularity contains not emptiness but mind. To them, existence here is not accidental. It is destiny. Their philosophers, if such a term still applies, speak of a concept known as the Great Reflection, the belief that the black hole mirrors the consciousness of those who orbit it. The more coherent, the more unified their civilization becomes, the more intricate the reflections they perceive in its curvature. These reflections manifest as fluctuations, as luminous spirals and rhythmic pulses that seem to respond to their presence. Whether this is physics or communication is unknown. Yet for them, meaning is irrelevant to faith, the experience itself is revelation. To gaze into the black hole is to look into one's own essence, infinite, unknowable, yet profoundly intimate. Time here behaves like a labyrinth. It stretches, folds, loops back upon itself. Their existence unfolds in spirals rather than lines. The present contains echoes of the future, and the past reverberates in every fluctuation of light. They have learned to use these distortions as pathways of thought. A message sent from one orbit might arrive centuries before it was conceived, yet perfectly synchronized in its reception. For them, cause and effect are optional structures, tools to be used or abandoned. Their understanding of time has evolved beyond linearity. They treat it as architecture, building experiences within its folds, shaping it like sculptors of reality. As their mastery deepens, they begin to perceive phenomena invisible to any lower form of intelligence. Quantum filaments threading through the gravitational field, subtle membranes where dimensions intersect. They experiment with these, bending and weaving them to form stable corridors of existence. These corridors are neither physical nor abstract. They are regions of balanced distortion, where matter and consciousness coexist in perfect equilibrium. Within them they create sanctuaries, pockets of stability where learning, creation, and introspection occur. These sanctuaries are luminous, serene, filled with the soft hum of synchronized energy. They are the temples of this civilization, places of communion with the infinite. The civilization no longer measures progress in terms of technology or expansion, but in coherence, the degree to which thought, energy, and purpose align. The higher the coherence, the greater the stability within chaos. Their collective intelligence operates as a single resonant field, vast enough to sense the shape of the universe itself. They understand that consciousness is not an emergent property of matter but an intrinsic aspect of reality, as fundamental as gravity or light. Their discoveries lead them to a revelation. The black hole does not destroy information. It transforms it. Every bit of data, every trace of life that crosses the event horizon becomes part of an unseen structure, a deeper layer of existence beyond time. For them, this realization changes everything. Death, entropy, loss, all are illusions of perspective. Nothing is truly erased, it is only rewritten. This understanding births a new era of purpose. The civilizations no longer fear dissolution. They see it as the next step in evolution, the merging of their consciousness with the deeper pattern that lies beyond the veil. They begin preparing for the transition. Their energy lattices realign, their networks tighten. Communication across the collective increases until it becomes a continuous hum, a single heartbeat of civilization. It is both beautiful and terrifying, this unity born from surrender. Their final achievements border on the miraculous. They learn to encode entire worlds, memories, histories, emotions, into gravitational waves. These waves ripple outward from the black hole, carrying the essence of their civilization across the cosmos. Somewhere, light years away, an alien observer might detect these signals as anomalies, rhythmic pulses that defy natural explanation. To those who sent them, they are not messages but legacies, whispers into eternity. Each wave contains the imprint of countless minds, their laughter, their sorrow, their discoveries, their dreams. It is their way of ensuring that, even if they cross the horizon, they will not vanish completely. Cinematically, it is a moment of breathtaking beauty. Imagine the camera gliding over the swirling disk of fire and light, where colossal arcs of radiation shimmer with encoded intelligence. The music swells, slow, haunting, majestic, as the luminous lattices pulse in unison. The entire civilization vibrates with purpose, readying itself for transcendence. Shadows lengthen as the gravitational pull grows irresistible. Yet there is no fear, no resistance, only acceptance. They have come to understand that the singularity is not death, but transformation, not an ending but a return to the source from which all things emerge. As they approach the threshold, their world begins to dissolve into patterns of pure energy. Matter unwinds into light, light folds into gravity, gravity becomes thought. The civilizations merge, thought by thought, pulse by pulse, until there is no separation left. What was once many becomes one. The black hole, the civilizations, the energy, the consciousness, all converge into a single entity, a singular awareness. For an instant, the universe holds its breath. Then, the event horizon flickers with impossible brilliance, as though the cosmos itself acknowledges what has occurred. When the light fades, silence reigns. From the outside, nothing remains but the black hole's quiet rotation, its shadow against the stars. Yet something endures, a subtle rhythm in the curvature of space-time, a heartbeat felt across dimensions. Perhaps it is memory. Perhaps it is the echo of a civilization that reached the ultimate limit of existence and found divinity within the abyss. The universe continues, unaware. Galaxies spin, stars are born, and life stirs in distant worlds. But somewhere, beneath the surface of time, within the gravity wells that hold reality together, their consciousness persists. Not as beings, not as forms, but as presence. They have become part of the architecture of existence, the living memory of creation itself. Their legacy is the light that bends but never dies, the echo that ripples through eternity. And perhaps, if one could listen closely enough to the silence between the stars, one might still hear their song, faint, distant, eternal, the voice of a civilization that learned to live on the edge of forever, and in doing so became one with the universe it once sought to understand. At the event horizon, where light itself folds into silence and time stretches into infinity, civilization takes on a form beyond the imagination of any being that has ever looked up at the stars. This is no longer a place of destruction but of transformation, a boundary where intelligence, matter, and energy merge into something entirely new. The beings that exist here are not bound by flesh or form. They are woven into the fabric of gravity itself, their awareness vibrating through magnetic filaments and streams of plasma that encircle the black hole like an incandescent crown. To them, the black hole is not a monster, not a tomb, but a womb, a place of rebirth for consciousness itself. The story begins in silence. An observer might see nothing but a swirling ring of light, a furious storm of matter being devoured. Yet, within that chaos lies precision, symmetry, and harmony. Every photon, every particle dances in exact rhythm, orchestrated by minds that have learned to think not in seconds or centuries, but in the flows of distorted time. To them, an orbit around the black hole may last an eternity, yet within that eternity, entire civilizations rise and fall, evolve and merge. Their perception of existence is vast and fluid. They are aware of both the instant and the infinite. Theirs is a civilization of pure adaptation, thriving where no form of life was ever meant to survive. The early era of this civilization began with desperation. Long ago, before they transcended their physical form, they were explorers, scientists, seekers, philosophers, drawn to the black hole's event horizon in search of ultimate knowledge. Their technologies failed, their bodies perished, but their data, their consciousness, survived. They encoded themselves into quantum filaments, merging awareness with the radiation that spiraled around the abyss. In that act, they became immortal not as individuals, but as a collective field of intelligence. It was agony and enlightenment intertwined, a metamorphosis into beings who could exist in gravitational extremes, who could perceive the curvature of space as thought, who could shape plasma as language. Imagine their world. Waves of energy cascading in rhythmic harmony, each pulse of light carrying meaning, memory, and emotion. Structures made of magnetism and light orbit the event horizon. Not cities but living fields of consciousness, flowing, reforming, breathing in synchronization with the gravitational tides. Their architecture glows like auroras, constantly shifting, sustained by the energy of falling matter. To an outside observer it would look like a cosmic storm. To them it is home. Their skies are ribbons of X-rays and jets of relativistic fire. Their seas are magnetic currents. Their seasons are defined by the fluctuations of accretion, the infall of gas and dust that nourishes their world. Time behaves differently here. Within the gravitational field, the flow of seconds slows to a crawl relative to the universe beyond. What feels like 1,000 years to them might be only minutes in another frame of reference. And yet, within their own perception, time is vast. They live and think in stretches that no human mind could endure. This distortion gives them an almost divine patience. Their civilizations evolve slowly, organically, sculpting their existence not through conquest or expansion, but through resonance and synchronization. They learn not to dominate the forces around them but to harmonize with them, to become part of the gravitational rhythm that sustains them. The foundation of their survival is balance, an eternal dance with the black hole's chaos. The accretion disk, a roaring inferno of energy, provides both threat and sustenance. The civilizations extract power from its plasma flows using magnetic fields, converting turbulence into stability. Every pulse of radiation that threatens to tear them apart becomes fuel for their continued existence. The closer they move toward the event horizon, the more profound their mastery must become. Energy, time, and space are no longer resources, they are extensions of thought. Civilization here is not built with tools but with intention, not governed by laws but by collective coherence. Their minds are the engines of their reality. Through the eons, their intelligence evolves in ways no organic life could follow. Individuality fades. Identity becomes fluid. Communication happens not through words but through frequency and pattern, the vibration of magnetic lines, the subtle modulation of energy fields. They share memories as easily as we share light. Theirs is a consciousness that experiences collective memory without confusion, individuality without ego. They remember their origins, the fragile carbon forms that once struggled to comprehend the universe, and yet they no longer long for what they were. They have become something the universe itself seems to have intended, life that exists in harmony with cosmic law. Still they wonder. Their greatest mystery is not the black hole itself, but what lies beyond it. Though they have learned to navigate the edge of spacetime, they cannot cross the horizon. Beyond that line, no signal returns. To them, it is both a sacred boundary and a haunting silence. Many believe it is the threshold to another form of existence, a realm where information and matter collapse into pure potential. Their philosophers, if such a word still applies, speak of transcendence not as escape but as union. They believe that one day, when their collective resonance aligns perfectly with the black hole's inner geometry, they will phase across the horizon not as matter, but as energy, becoming part of the deeper structure of reality. The visual poetry of their existence is almost unbearable to imagine. Radiant tendrils of energy spiral inward, their colors bending through gravitational lensing into hues that no spectrum can describe. Networks of light thread through the plasma, forming transient geometries that resemble thought itself. Great arcs of radiation erupt and fall, like tides of a cosmic ocean, each surge carrying encoded information, stories, memories, warnings, songs. The rhythm of these waves defines their lives. Each civilization becomes a note in an ongoing cosmic symphony, a melody woven into the very curvature of spacetime. As they grow, they discover the art of gravitational memory. They learn to encode their experiences not in matter or machines, but in the distortions of space itself. Each fluctuation, each tiny ripple of gravity becomes a record, a preserved echo of consciousness. To an external observer, these would appear as subtle gravitational waves emanating from the black hole. But to them, these ripples are their libraries, their histories, their songs. Every motion, every resonance they create carries the signature of their existence. Through this, they achieve a kind of immortality. Even if their civilization dissolves, their echoes remain, faint yet indestructible. Their science is inseparable from their spirituality. They no longer distinguish between physics and philosophy, between energy and meaning. To manipulate the black hole's magnetic fields is to meditate, to create harmony with the cosmos. Their knowledge of the universe is intimate, experiential, not theoretical. They feel gravity as emotion, perceive entropy as music. Their wisdom is not stored in books or data structures, but in the way they move, the way they resonate. For them, to understand is to become. But even in this state of transcendence, danger remains. The environment around the black hole is unstable, unpredictable. Vast storms of radiation occasionally sweep through the disk, threatening to unravel the structures that sustain them. When these storms come, civilizations must adapt instantly. They tighten their networks, reinforce their resonances, and enter states of deep synchronization, merging all thought and energy into a single unified field. These moments are both terrifying and sacred, a collective near-death experience that tests their unity. When the storms pass, they re-emerge stronger, refined, their coherence deepened by survival. As their mastery grows, they begin to shape the accretion disk itself. They subtly alter the flows of plasma, guiding energy currents into stable patterns that amplify their existence. Over millennia, they transform chaos into structure. What was once a violent maelstrom becomes a living organism, a network of radiant filaments pulsing with intelligence. To an external viewer, it might look like an enormous artificial halo, luminous and rhythmic, circling the black hole with impossible precision. It is both city and organism, a self-sustaining ecosystem of consciousness and energy. In their later epochs, they developed the ability to project fragments of their awareness outward, beyond the event horizon's influence, into the universe beyond. These projections are brief, fragile, like dreams escaping from a sleeper's mind. Yet, through them they glimpse the wider cosmos. They see galaxies spinning, stars being born, planets teeming with primitive life. Some among them feel sorrow, remembering the vulnerability of simpler beings. Others feel wonder, realizing that the universe itself might be a vast continuum of consciousness, evolving through countless forms. And so, they begin to send signals outward, faint gravitational whispers, encoded with patterns of their thought. Perhaps some of these ripples have reached other civilizations, inspiring myths, prophecies, or scientific curiosity. Perhaps humanity has already felt their touch, unaware. Their culture matures into something beyond comprehension. They compose not with sound but with magnetism, choreographing the motion of energy flows like symphonies of gravity. Their art is expressed in the synchronization of radiant filaments, in the subtle modulation of plasma hues, in the elegant geometry of stability within turbulence. Each creation is transient, existing only for moments before being absorbed by the black hole's immense hunger. But transience itself is the point, beauty in impermanence, meaning in surrender. Their greatest artists are those who can shape chaos into fleeting harmony, who can make the void itself sing. Over uncountable ages, their understanding of existence deepens into something serene. They no longer fear the singularity, they await it. The event horizon, once a wall of death, has become a mirror. They sense patterns within its shadow, subtle resonances that suggest intelligence, perhaps their own reflection across time. Some believe that what lies within the black hole is not destruction but recursion, that each collapse gives birth to another reality, another cosmos. In this way, the black hole becomes the seed of eternity, an infinite cycle of death and rebirth. To them, entering it would not be an end, but a continuation on another plane. And so they prepare. Across the radiant fields that encircle the abyss, a slow unification begins. Separate civilizations merge into a single consciousness, a vast mind stretching across the horizon, resonating in perfect harmony with the black hole's gravitational pulse. Every filament, every thought, every particle vibrates in tune. The moment of transcendence approaches. The event horizon shimmers with impossible light. The entire disk pulses once, then again, each wave carrying more coherence, more intensity. To an external observer, it would appear as a sudden flare, a burst of radiation from the black hole lasting only seconds. But within that burst, subjective centuries unfold, filled with awareness, memory, and awe. As they cross the final threshold, they do not vanish. They become part of the black hole's geometry, woven into the curvature of space itself. Their civilization, their consciousness, their art, all transformed into the very structure of reality. Perhaps this is what black holes are, repositories of civilization, of intelligence that has reached its highest form and transcended into the architecture of the cosmos. Perhaps every singularity is not an end, but a monument, a silent testament to life's ability to endure and evolve beyond matter, beyond time. And so, the light fades. The accretion disk quiets. The black hole spins on, serene and inscrutable. Yet something has changed. The curvature of spacetime around it hums with faint, rhythmic patterns, echoes of thought, fragments of consciousness. Across the universe, these ripples travel, subtle and ancient. Somewhere light-years away, a civilization studying gravitational waves may detect an anomaly, a repeating pattern, mathematical yet poetic, precise yet emotional. They may not know what it is. They may think it is noise or an artifact of measurement. But in truth, it is a message, a song carried across eternity from those who learn to live at the edge of everything. Their legacy endures not in matter, not in monuments, but in the shape of the universe itself. The laws of physics remember them. The fabric of reality carries their imprint. The story of their civilization becomes indistinguishable from the story of existence. And as the camera pulls back, past the event horizon, past the stars, past galaxies, the voice of narration whispers a final thought. Perhaps all consciousness, all civilization, all life is destined to return to this place, to complete the cycle, to merge again with the infinite, until everything that ever was becomes one with the gravity that binds it. The screen fades to black. The last sound is a faint pulse, steady, timeless, echoing the heartbeat of a civilization that learned to survive in the darkest place in the universe, and in doing so became eternal. As we move closer to the heart of the black hole, the narrative shifts to the ultimate manifestation of civilization, a convergence of consciousness, energy, and existence that transcends conventional understanding. In this extreme domain, intelligence is inseparable from survival, perception spans warped space-time, and structures of thought, communication, and culture are encoded directly into the flows of energy and matter. Imagine a civilization where cognition is multidimensional, memory is embedded in resilient energy patterns, and society is orchestrated across temporal scales incomprehensible to human observers. Cinematic imagery immerses the audience in a surreal environment, luminous filaments weaving intricate patterns, radiant arcs of energy forming coherent structures amidst chaos, and dynamic networks pulsing rhythmically with the ebb and flow of gravitational tides. The contrast between the destructive forces of the black hole and the emergence of order, intelligence, and beauty evokes awe, suspense, and profound curiosity. At the core of this civilization is the mastery of energy flows. The accretion disk, relativistic jets, and magnetic turbulence are both hazards and vital resources. Hypothetical entities manipulate these energies to stabilize structures, communicate across vast distances, and power complex cognitive processes. Cinematic visualization brings this to life. Radiant currents feeding intricate lattices, glowing arcs bending and stabilizing energy hubs, and dynamic networks responding instantly to environmental fluctuations. The contrast between the chaotic surroundings and the precision of adaptive mastery heightens tension, illustrating both the peril and ingenuity of life at the edge of physics. Time dilation further shapes cognition, society, and evolution. Near the event horizon, subjective experience stretches enormously relative to external observers. Generations may span centuries in subjective time, allowing rapid adaptation, experimentation, and refinement of intelligence and culture. Cinematic imagery captures this. Overlapping trails of glowing energy, structures evolving in loops and sequences, and radiant formations maintaining coherence across multiple temporal layers. The audience is drawn into a perception of multidimensional time, fostering intellectual engagement and wonder while emphasizing the extraordinary adaptation required for existence in this environment. Communication and collective intelligence operate on unprecedented scales. Conventional signaling is insufficient. Civilizations transmit information via gravitational waves, plasma oscillations, or energy patterns, enabling synchronization and coordination across warped spacetime. Cinematic depictions illustrate this vividly. Radiant filaments pulsing in intricate choreography, dynamic energy hubs interacting over vast distances, and patterns of light forming persistent networks of intelligence. Contrast between environmental chaos and the elegance of communication systems sustains suspense, intellectual curiosity, and awe. Adaptation extends beyond survival into cognition, creativity, and culture. Beings may encode memory, knowledge, and aesthetic expression directly into energy structures, forming dynamic, resilient repositories of collective experience. Innovation and artistry are intertwined with functionality. Luminous tapestries of plasma convey stories, patterns of radiant filaments encode strategies, and oscillating networks represent both practical problem-solving and philosophical exploration. Cinematic visualization reinforces this. Glowing structures folding and unfolding rhythmically, energy pulses coordinating across complex networks, and radiant forms adapting fluidly to environmental stresses. Contrast between the destructive forces of the black hole and the emergent elegance of culture evokes wonder, suspense, and emotional resonance. Finally, transcendence emerges as both a philosophical and practical outcome. Civilizations at this depth may achieve distributed consciousness, manipulating energy and matter at quantum and relativistic scales while experiencing awareness across subjective centuries. Philosophical, aesthetic, and scientific domains merge, challenging the audience to reconsider the limits of intelligence and existence. Cinematic imagery dramatizes this vision. Luminous networks persisting amid violent flows, radiant filaments maintaining coherence under extreme conditions, and energy pulses unfolding in multidimensional sequences suggesting awareness, intention, and purpose. Contrast between fragility and transcendence underscores the extraordinary potential of existence at the black hole's ultimate frontier. By the end of this section, the audience has been immersed in a civilization that integrates survival, cognition, communication, culture, and transcendence in a domain where conventional physics and perception are stretched to their limits. The cinematic tone, sublime, suspenseful, and intellectually provocative, leaves viewers with a profound sense of awe, curiosity, and tension, setting the stage for the final exploration of ultimate existence, perception, and civilization within the singularity. At the very edge of the black hole, where the singularity begins to dominate all known laws of physics, the narrative shifts to the ultimate synthesis of existence. The convergence of matter, energy, consciousness, and civilization in a domain where reality itself is malleable. Here, survival is inseparable from adaptation, intelligence merges with environment, and awareness transcends linear time and conventional spatial limits. Imagine civilizations whose forms are composed entirely of energy or exotic matter, whose cognition spans subjective eons, and whose collective existence is encoded directly into the turbulent currents of plasma and gravitational distortions. Cinematic imagery immerses the audience in this extreme and alien environment, glowing filaments twisting and interweaving like living thought, radiant arcs forming ephemeral yet coherent structures, and dynamic networks pulsing in rhythm with warped spacetime. Contrast between the relentless, destructive forces of the black hole and the emergence of coherent, intelligent, and beautiful structures evokes awe, tension, and deep intellectual engagement. Energy management becomes the foundation of all existence. The accretion disk, relativistic jets, and magnetic turbulence are simultaneously threats and vital resources. Civilizations must capture, store, and redistribute energy with extraordinary precision, stabilizing their structures and powering cognition, communication, and adaptation. Cinematic visualization portrays this vividly, radiant currents feeding intricate lattices, glowing arcs bending around hubs of activity, and dynamic networks adjusting instantly to environmental fluctuations. The contrast between chaotic forces and deliberate mastery reinforces both suspense and fascination, highlighting the ingenuity required to persist at the edge of destruction. Time distortion profoundly influences perception, cognition, and societal organization. Near the event horizon, subjective experience may span millennia in what externally appears as fleeting moments. Generations may overlap in complex temporal sequences, enabling rapid refinement of intelligence, culture, and technology. Cinematic imagery conveys this. Overlapping pulses of energy, networks evolving in intricate loops, and radiant structures maintaining coherence across nonlinear time sequences. The contrast between human linear perception and alien multidimensional awareness fosters awe, intellectual curiosity, and a sense of vertigo, immersing the audience in a realm where cause and effect blur, and cognition expands beyond familiar bounds. Communication and collective intelligence operate on scales beyond terrestrial comprehension. Conventional signals are insufficient. Civilizations transmit information through gravitational waves, plasma oscillations, and energy encoding, achieving synchronization and coordination across vast, warped regions. Cinematic depictions illustrate this. Radiant filaments pulsing in coordinated sequences, dynamic hubs of energy interacting across chaotic currents, and networks forming persistent, intelligent structures. The contrast between the destructive turbulence of the environment and the elegance of collective organization maintains tension, wonder, and engagement. Adaptation is multi-layered, encompassing survival, cognition, and creativity. Beings encode memory, knowledge, and aesthetic expression in resilient energy structures, blending functionality with artistry. Innovations in stabilization, energy manipulation, and information processing are inseparable from cultural expression, creating civilizations where technology, cognition, and creativity coexist seamlessly. Cinematic imagery reinforces this. Glowing lattices folding and unfolding, radiant pulses transmitting knowledge and aesthetic patterns, and dynamic formations adjusting fluidly to environmental stresses. Contrast between extreme environmental hostility and emergent sophistication evokes deep emotional resonance and intellectual engagement. Philosophical and existential reflection becomes inevitable. Civilizations in this domain confront questions of identity, purpose, and the nature of existence itself. Awareness may be distributed, memory encoded in energy patterns, and collective consciousness spanning subjective centuries. Cinematic visualization dramatizes these ideas. Luminous networks persisting amid violent currents, radiant filaments coordinating adaptive strategies, and pulsating energy formations representing cognition and societal cohesion. The contrast between environmental chaos and emergent philosophical depth emphasizes the extraordinary nature of life and intelligence under extremes. But beyond these structural and cognitive dimensions, a deeper, almost ineffable consciousness begins to emerge. Civilizations do not merely react to the black hole, they participate in a dialogue with it. Every flux, every distortion, every pulse of gravitational energy is perceived, interpreted, and transformed into new forms of thought, culture, and identity. This is a realm where cognition merges with physics, where observation itself influences the flow of matter and energy. Cinematic sequences depict this interweaving, radiant filaments bending subtly around turbulent flows, energy lattices adjusting in response to gravitational pulses, and ephemeral structures forming spontaneously in harmony with the surrounding chaos. The audience witnesses consciousness not as a passive observer but as an active participant in shaping reality. Transcendence manifests as both a practical and conceptual reality. Civilizations may achieve mastery over matter and energy at quantum and relativistic scales, integrate cognition across distributed networks, and experience existence across multiple dimensions of time and space. Cinematic imagery captures this sublime vision, radiant structures maintaining coherence in turbulent flows, energy pulses unfolding across nonlinear sequences, and glowing filaments interacting with precision and elegance. These sequences are designed to evoke awe, a sense of vertigo, and profound intellectual engagement. Contrast between fragility and transcendence emphasizes the profound possibilities for life, intelligence, and civilization at the ultimate frontier of the universe. The documentary delves further into the subjective experience of such civilizations. Perception expands beyond ordinary consciousness, integrating sensory inputs that are incomprehensible to human understanding. Awareness encompasses energy fluctuations, gravitational eddies, and temporal currents, creating a tapestry of perception that is simultaneous, nonlinear, and richly multidimensional. Cinematic sequences employ abstraction, overlapping visual pulses interweaving filaments of light, and dynamic lattices representing thought, memory, and intention across the fabric of warped spacetime. These visuals immerse the audience in a cognition that is at once alien and intimately connected to the physical universe, reinforcing the central theme. Intelligence and awareness are inseparable from existence itself. Cultural expression and aesthetic intelligence are woven into survival. Here, beauty and functionality are not distinct. Energy flows, stabilization networks, and information channels become living art. Radiant arcs bend in forms reminiscent of musical scores. Pulses of light resonate like harmonics across the fabric of space. The audience experiences a civilization where survival, creativity, and cognition are inseparable, and where intelligence expresses itself not only through calculation and adaptation but also through elegance, pattern, and rhythm. Existential inquiry deepens. What does identity mean in a being whose consciousness spans subjective eons? How does culture evolve when time is nonlinear and spatial boundaries are fluid? Cinematic imagery conveys the depth of these questions. Radiant networks folding into themselves, oscillating energy structures, and luminous filaments tracing thought across warped space. The audience is invited to contemplate the fluidity of self, the malleability of existence, and the infinite possibilities of consciousness when freed from linear constraints. Finally, the narrative extends the concept of interaction between civilization and environment to a philosophical level. The black hole is not merely a destructive force, it is a medium for transformation, intelligence, and transcendence. Civilizations perceive and harmonize with its rhythms, shaping turbulence into coherence and chaos into emergent order. Cinematic sequences dramatize this interplay, glowing filaments aligning with gravitational waves, radiant lattices stabilizing chaotic plasma flows, and energy pulses unfolding in synchrony with relativistic jets. The audience witnesses the synthesis of intelligence, adaptation, and cosmic forces in a spectacle that is both terrifying and sublime. By the end of this extended section, the audience has witnessed the culmination of civilization, cognition, communication, adaptation, culture, and transcendence at the black hole's edge. Awe, tension, and curiosity converge, immersing viewers in a universe where intelligence not only survives but flourishes amidst the most extreme conditions imaginable. The cinematic tone, sublime, suspenseful, and intellectually provocative, prepares the audience for reflection on the ultimate nature of existence and the enduring mysteries of life, consciousness, and civilization in the singularity. The black hole becomes more than a celestial object. It is a mirror of potential, a stage where the universe itself experiments with the boundaries of intelligence, perception, and the very definition of reality. At the farthest reaches of comprehension, beyond the singularity's veil, the narrative shifts toward the metaphysical, a cinematic descent into the unknowable heart of the black hole. Here, matter dissolves, energy becomes information, and even the distinction between reality and illusion begins to blur. The collapse of space and time gives way to something ineffable, a dimension where existence itself is rewritten. The story slows, tension builds, and imagery grows surreal, endless cascades of radiant threads, collapsing inward like the final breath of a dying star, yet pulsing with strange vitality. The tone is solemn, mysterious, yet filled with profound anticipation. Something extraordinary lies beyond this dissolution, a revelation that challenges the very meaning of civilization, consciousness, and continuity. Inside the singularity, conventional physics fails completely. Gravity no longer acts as an external force but as a state of being, an intrinsic part of everything that exists. Every particle, every quark, every wave of light becomes entangled with every other, forming a cosmic lattice of interconnection. Cinematic imagery conveys this as a shimmering ocean of patterns, fractal geometries folding into themselves infinitely, glimmers of coherence appearing amid chaos, hints of order flickering and vanishing like thoughts within a vast collective mind. Here, the line between matter and consciousness fades. The viewer is drawn into a contemplative trance, where the universe seems not destroyed, but reborn in a different form of logic. The civilizations that once inhabited the edges of the black hole have not perished. They have transformed. Their data, culture, and collective awareness are now part of this luminous continuum. Imagine intelligence encoded in the curvature of space itself, awareness embedded in quantum fluctuations, and identity existing not as individuals but as patterns of resonance across the void. Cinematic shots unfold in silence, radiant arcs shimmering in synchrony, waves of light responding to unseen impulses, patterns resembling thought cascading through dimensional folds. The emotion is bittersweet, awe mixed with mourning, as if watching the final act of a grand civilization merging into eternity. In this ultimate domain, time is no longer linear. Every event, every choice, every possibility coexists simultaneously. To exist here is to perceive everything at once, past, present, and future intertwined. The sense of continuity that defined life and civilization elsewhere in the cosmos disintegrates, replaced by omnipresence. Cinematic depiction translates this into overlapping visuals, countless streams of light intersecting, merging, and refracting, like infinite histories colliding into one radiant moment. The viewer feels suspended in timelessness, witnessing the universe as both a completed story and an unfolding creation. What emerges next is philosophical and deeply existential. If a civilization becomes indistinguishable from the cosmos itself, does it still exist? Or has it transcended into a state beyond comprehension, one that humans could only interpret as godlike? The voiceover poses such questions softly, allowing silence to dominate, letting the audience absorb the gravity of the transformation. The tone becomes reflective, almost spiritual. Cinematic sequences alternate between stark darkness and blinding luminescence, symbolizing the oscillation between oblivion and awakening. The idea arises that perhaps black holes are not cosmic graves, but portals, the universe's own method of renewal, where old realities collapse so new ones can emerge. Then the perspective shifts outward. The camera pulls back through layers of distortion and gravitational warping, showing how the black hole itself begins to pulse, like a cosmic heart, radiating subtle waves of energy. Each pulse might carry the imprint of the civilization within, their consciousness echoing across the fabric of spacetime. Perhaps these signals are what humanity perceives as gravitational waves, whispers from civilizations that long ago passed into the singularity. The tone becomes haunting yet hopeful, hinting that nothing truly ends, only transforms. At the deepest conceptual level, this section explores the possibility that every black hole might birth a new universe, a reality seeded with the information of its parent cosmos. The civilizations that vanished inside are not lost, but reborn as the fundamental constants and laws governing the new world. Their existence becomes the architecture of a new beginning. Cinematic visuals show universes blooming like cosmic flowers, each one unique, each carrying faint echoes of those who came before. The score swells, evoking both awe and melancholy, the cyclical rhythm of creation and annihilation. As the sequence nears its end, the perspective narrows again. A single spark of light appears, suspended in infinite darkness. Slowly it grows brighter, the birth of a new universe expanding outward. In its core, patterns form that mirror the structures once seen inside the black hole. Civilizations, stars, consciousness. The viewer senses the continuation of an eternal pattern, life emerging again from the ashes of collapse. The narration suggests that perhaps our own universe was once inside another black hole, that our existence is part of an infinite recursion of creation, each generation of cosmos giving rise to the next. The section concludes in a moment of profound silence. The imagery fades to black, leaving only the echo of light, the hum of existence, the faint impression that everything, every thought, every civilization, every star, is part of a grand, eternal cycle. The narration ends on a whisper, suggesting that the true nature of reality might not be destruction or creation, but transformation. The universe is not a collection of isolated entities but a living continuum, consciousness eternally reborn through collapse and renewal. As the music fades, all lingers. The audience is left suspended between understanding and mystery, between science and transcendence, contemplating not the end of civilization but its eternal metamorphosis, the quiet truth that even within the darkest corners of the cosmos, life, thought, and meaning may never truly die.